The damaged cargo ship drifted silently through the star-filled void, its hull scared and dark. From a distance, it looked like just another piece of space debris, the kind that littered the borders of the Bright Empire's territory. The ship's name, Star Wanderer, was barely visible under layers of carefully applied scorch marks. Inside the bridge, Captain James Walker stood perfectly still in the darkness, watching through the viewscreen as 3 sleek alien patrol ships passed by his vessel. Their blue-white engines pulsed with clean energy, a stark contrast to his ship's apparent derelict state. He didn't dare breathe until their scanners swept over the Star Wanderer and moved on. "They bought it," whispered Anna Reed, her fingers dancing over the engineering console. The young doctor had spent months perfecting their disguise. "Their scan registered us as exactly what we appear to be, a dead human cargo ship." Walker allowed himself a small smile. "Status of the stealth systems." "Holding steady," Anna replied. "The heat sinks are working perfectly. As far as they can tell, we're cold and lifeless." Tom Martinez, the weapons officer, emerged from the shadows of his station. "Those patrol ships could have blown us to dust with a single shot," he said, his voice tight with tension. "Makes you wonder why they didn't bother." "They didn't bother because we're beneath their notice," Walker said, his tone bitter but satisfied. "The mighty Bright Empire doesn't waste ammunition on space junk. Their arrogance is our greatest advantage." The bridge fell silent again as the crew watched the patrol ships disappear into the distance. They were running with minimal power, every system carefully masked. The ship's revolutionary stealth technology didn't just hide them from scanners. It made them look like garbage. Walker moved to the central display, where a map showed their position relative to Empire space. They had crossed the border successfully, but this was just the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, deep in enemy territory. "Status report," he ordered quietly, even though there was no way the enemy could hear them. "Old habits died hard in space. Life support running at 20%, perfectly masked," Anna reported. "The heat sinks can handle another 72 hours before we need to vent. Weapons systems dormant but ready," Tom added. "All cargo containers secure." He didn't mention what was really inside those containers. Even here, among trusted crew, some things were better left unspoken. Walker nodded, studying the map. The Bright Empire had expanded rapidly in the last decade, swallowing up human colonies one by one. They called humans a pest species, something to be exterminated before it could spread further into space. Their technology was centuries ahead of Earth's, their ships faster, their weapons more powerful, their shields impenetrable. But they had never faced anything like the Star Wanderer. "Begin recording," Walker said softly. "Ship's log, encrypted. Day 1 of Operation Phoenix. We have successfully penetrated the Empire's outer defense perimeter. Their patrol ships dismissed us as debris, exactly as predicted. The stealth systems developed by Dr. Reed are performing beyond expectations. We are now officially in enemy space, the first human vessel to penetrate this deep since the war began." He paused, watching as another contact appeared on their long-range sensors. This time, it was a massive cargo hauler, its hull gleaming with the distinctive golden sheen of Empire technology. The alien ship was easily 20 times their size, and its weight caused the Star Wanderer to tumble slightly. "The enemy continues to demonstrate their technological superiority," Walker continued his log. "The cargo ship that just passed us had more firepower than an entire Earth battle group. Yet they remain blind to our presence. Their scanners, programmed to detect energy signatures and advanced materials, overlook us completely. We appear as nothing more than a hulk of basic metals and inactive systems." Anna's console beeped softly. "Captain, picking up transmissions. The Empire's civilian channels are unencrypted. They're celebrating." Walker moved to her station, reading the translated alien text as it scrolled across her screen. His jaw tightened. "They're celebrating the fall of Watson Colony," he said for the log. "The 14th human settlement to be destroyed this year. Population Population was 50,000. Tom's hands clenched on his console. My sister was on Watson, he said quietly. She was a teacher. Walker placed a hand on his weapons officer's shoulder. They all had lost someone to the Empire's extermination campaign. That's why they had volunteered for this mission. That's why they were willing to risk everything. Continue monitoring transmissions, Walker ordered, but maintain communications blackout. We're not here to gather intelligence. We have a different purpose. The bridge crew nodded. They all knew the mission. The Star Wanderer was carrying humanity's last hope, a weapon unlike anything ever developed. The cargo containers that filled their hold didn't contain supplies or trade goods. They contained Project Phoenix, a system so classified that even the crew didn't know exactly how it worked. Hours passed in tense silence as they drifted deeper into enemy space. They passed more patrol ships, military vessels, and civilian craft. Each time, their disguise held. Each time, the mighty ships of the Bright Empire ignored the pitiful human wreck. Update from engineering. Anna reported after their sixth encounter. The outer hull plating is starting to heat up from solar radiation. We'll need to rotate the ship 40 degrees to maintain our temperature signature. Walker authorized the adjustment. The maneuver would take almost an hour at their minimal power settings, but they couldn't risk using the maneuvering thrusters. Any sign of active systems would give them away. As the ship slowly turned, they caught sight of their first Empire world. The planet was massive, its surface covered in sprawling cities that glowed with golden light. Orbital platforms and defense stations formed a protective web around it. Messages and ships filled the space around the planet, a testament to the Empire's power and prosperity. "Look at them," Tom whispered. "They're not even at war footing. This is just business as usual. Killing us is just another day's work for them." "That's going to change," Walker said firmly. "The Empire thinks they know humanity's capabilities. They think they've seen everything we can throw at them. That's why this mission will succeed. Because they've dismissed us, underestimated us, written us off." He turned to face his small crew, his voice barely above a whisper but filled with determination. "They see a dead ship, so that's what we'll be. Dead and drifting, all the way to their central military base. And then we'll show them exactly what humanity is capable of." The Star Wanderer continued its slow tumble through space, looking for all the world like a piece of debris caught in the planet's gravitational field. Inside, its crew watched and waited, gathering data, staying silent. They were the ghost in the Empire's machine, the wolf in sheep's clothing, the trap waiting to be sprung. In his quarters later, Walker reviewed the day's sensor logs. The Empire's arrogance was staggering. Their ships didn't even maintain basic security protocols around what they saw as debris. Their transmissions were unencrypted, their patrol patterns predictable. They had grown so used to being the supreme power that they had forgotten the basic military principle: never underestimate your enemy. Soon they would remember. Soon they would learn. But for now, the Star Wanderer drifted on, playing dead, moving slowly but inexorably toward its target. Inside its hold, Project Phoenix waited, silent and patient, humanity's answer to an empire that thought them vermin. The hunter that looked like prey continued its journey into the heart of enemy space. The ship they ignored would soon become the ship they feared, but that was a revelation for another day. For now, there was only the drift, the darkness, and the silent promise of retribution to come. 3 months earlier, the underground bunker of Earth's United Defense Council buzzed with nervous energy. Maps and holographic displays covered the walls, showing the steady advance of the Bright Empire's forces. Red markers indicated fallen human colonies, while blue ones showed the few that remained. The balance was not in humanity's favor. Walker sat in an uncomfortable metal chair, watching council members file into the room. Their faces were grim, their uniforms pristine but worn. These were people who hadn't slept properly in months. The war was going badly, and everyone knew it. "Captain Walker," Admiral Stone began, his voice rough from too many sleepless nights. What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room. If you decline this mission, you'll be given memory suppressants. Do you understand?" Walker nodded. Next to him, Anna Reed and Tom Martinez sat quietly. They had all been through heavy security screening before even entering the bunker. Whatever this was, it was big. The Admiral pressed a button, and the room's main screen lit up with images of destroyed Empire ships. 3 weeks ago, we lost Watson Colony, but before it fell, they managed to shoot down one of the Empire's destroyers. It was a lucky hit, 1 in a million. But it gave us something we've never had before: intact Empire technology. The screen showed pictures of strange golden machinery, unlike anything Walker had seen before. "Their tech is biological in nature," the Admiral continued. "Their ships are partly alive. That's why our weapons usually don't work. Their hulls adapt and heal. But our scientists found something interesting. The living metal has a weakness." Anna Reed leaned forward, her eyes wide. As an engineer, she understood the implications. "You found a way to kill their ships," she said softly. "Better." The Admiral's smile was cold. "We found a way to turn their own technology against them. Project Phoenix isn't just a weapon. It's a virus. A virus designed to infect and control their living metal." The room went silent. Walker felt a chill run down his spine. This was why they had been chosen. Not for their combat skills, but for their ability to deliver a disease into the heart of the Empire. The Admiral pressed another button, and a new image appeared: a cargo ship. "The Star Wanderer," he said. "An old rust bucket that was about to be scrapped. We've modified it. On the surface, it looks like space debris. Underneath, it's carrying 30 cargo containers, each holding a piece of Project Phoenix." "How does it work?" Martins asked, his voice careful. A scientist stepped forward, Dr. Wells, according to her name tag. "The Empire's ships communicate through a biological network, like a nervous system. Project Phoenix hijacks that network. Each unit contains a small piece of modified Empire tech that acts like a virus. Once activated, it spreads through their network, turning their ship's systems against them. And our job is delivery," Walker said. It wasn't a question. "Your job is to get those containers into the heart of Empire space," the Admiral confirmed. "Their main fleet base, the place where they coordinate all military operations against us. Once there, you'll activate Project Phoenix. If it works as designed, their entire fleet will tear itself apart." Dr. Wells continued the briefing, showing them the technical specifications of their modified ship. The stealth system was revolutionary. Instead of trying to hide from Empire sensors, it would make the ship look exactly like what they would expect to see: a dead human vessel, victim of their superior firepower. "The Empire is arrogant," the Admiral said. "They don't clean up after their victories. Space is littered with the remains of our ships and stations. You'll be hiding in plain sight." The briefing continued for hours. They learned about the ship's modified systems, the maintenance requirements, the backup plans. Everything had been thought of, every detail considered. This was humanity's last real chance to turn the tide. "There's something else you need to know," Dr. Wells said near the end. "The biological components we're using. They're unstable. Once Project Phoenix activates, you'll have 6 hours to clear the area. After that, the components will break down. We can't risk the Empire recovering and studying them." "And if we're discovered before reaching the target?" Martins asked. "Your ship is rigged with explosives," the Admiral said bluntly. "Powerful enough to destroy everything, including Project Phoenix. If you're detected, you'll have to make a choice." Walker looked at his crew. They had served together for 5 years, through countless battles. He knew them, trusted them. Now he was asking them to join him on what might be a suicide mission. "The Empire thinks they know us," the Admiral said, reading the doubt in Walker's eyes. "They think we're predictable, primitive. They expect us to fight with warships and missiles. They expect us to die bravely but futilely. They don't expect this." The briefing room's screen showed more images of destroyed colonies, Watson, New Sydney, Hope's Landing. Millions dead, millions more who would die if the Empire wasn't stopped. I'm not ordering you to take this mission, the Admiral said quietly. It has to be your choice. All of you. The risk of capture, the Empire's interrogation methods. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Walker stood up. How long do we have to prepare? The ship is ready now. We've been modifying it for months, waiting for the right crew. The Empire expects another major push against our colonies within 6 months. You need to reach their fleet base before then. Anna Reed raised her hand. The technical specifications of the stealth system. They're like nothing I've seen before. Who designed it? The Admiral's face tightened. The team that designed it was on Watson Colony. The plans we have are all that's left. The room went quiet again. Walker looked at his crew. Martinez had lost his sister on Watson. Now they knew she wasn't the only loss that day. When do we leave? Walker asked. Tonight, the Admiral replied. A freighter will take you to the edge of Empire space. From there, you're on your own. Remember, total communications blackout once you cross their border. No messages, no signals. As far as Earth is concerned, you'll be listed as missing in action, presumed dead. They spent the rest of the day studying their mission. The route, the backup plans, the endless technical details of maintaining their disguise. Dr. Wells worked with Anna, explaining the intricacies of the stealth system. Martins learned about Project Phoenix's deployment sequence. Just before they left the bunker, the Admiral pulled Walker aside. There's one more thing, he said quietly. Something not in the official briefing. If you reach the target, if you succeed, there's no coming back. The explosion when Project Phoenix self-destructs will leave no survivors. Walker nodded. He had already guessed as much. The crew. Tell them or don't. Your choice. But they need to be on that ship when it leaves tonight. Walker looked through the briefing room's window. Anna and Martinez were still studying the technical readouts, preparing for the mission. They had followed him through years of war. Now he would lead them on one final mission. We'll be ready, he said. The Admiral gripped his shoulder. Good hunting, Captain. Show these bastards what humanity can do. That night, under cover of darkness, they boarded the Star Wanderer. As the ship lifted off, Walker watched his crew at their stations. They had all lost something to the Empire. Now they had a chance to make those losses mean something. The ship that would change the course of the war departed Earth for the last time, carrying its deadly cargo and its brave crew into the heart of enemy space. The Empire would never see them coming. They would never expect their doom to arrive in such a humble package. The hunt was about to begin. The Star Wanderer floated past another Empire city ship, its massive golden hull stretching for miles. Through the bridge windows, the crew watched in silent awe as the huge vessel moved through space like a living thing. Schools of smaller ships buzzed around it like fish around a whale. Their arrogance is incredible, Anna whispered from her engineering station. Look at all the lights, the open hangars. They're not even trying to hide their movements. She checked her readings again, making sure their own ship's stealth systems were still working perfectly. One slip, one power surge, and they would be discovered. Walker stood at his usual spot on the bridge, watching the city ship pass. They had been in Empire space for 2 weeks now, drifting deeper into enemy territory. Each day brought new wonders and new reasons to hate the Empire. Their technology wasn't just advanced. It was beautiful, graceful, perfect. And they used it to destroy anything they considered beneath them. The ship's log was full of recordings now. They had seen shipyards bigger than Earth's moon, defense platforms that could destroy entire fleets, and trading posts where 1,000 alien species gathered to do business. But no humans, never humans. The Empire had made sure of that. Temperature rising in cargo hold 3, Anna reported quietly. The Phoenix units are getting restless. Martins moved to help her adjust the cooling systems. The living metal in their cargo holds needed constant attention. Sometimes it tried to activate early, sensing the Empire tech around them. They couldn't let that happen. Not yet. How much longer? Martins asked, his voice barely above a whisper. They had all gotten used to speaking softly, as if the Empire ships might hear them through the vacuum of space. Walker checked their position on the navigation display. 5 days to the target. If we maintain this drift pattern, assuming we don't have to change course again. They had already been forced to alter their path twice to avoid Empire patrol routes. The enemy ships might ignore them as debris, but too many close passes would look suspicious. Even space junk followed the laws of physics. A new alert flashed on Anna's screen. Energy spike in the city ship, she reported. They're powering up their main drive. The crew watched as the massive vessel's engines came to life. Filling space with brilliant blue-white light, the Star Wanderer rocked in the energy wake, its hull creaking under the strain. Hull temperature rising, Anna said, her fingers flying over her controls. The radiation shielding is having trouble compensating. Let it rise, Walker ordered. A dead ship would be affected by their engine wash. We need to look natural. They endured 10 minutes of buffeting as the city ship accelerated away. When it was finally gone, Anna ran a full system check. No damage, she reported. But 3 of the Phoenix units tried to activate during the energy surge. I had to flood their containers with coolant. Walker nodded. Good work. How are our power reserves? Down to 60%. We'll need to do a solar recharge soon. Plot a course that will take us through the light of that red giant, Walker ordered, pointing to a massive star in the distance. We can absorb energy there without looking suspicious. As Martinez adjusted their drift trajectory, Walker studied the navigation display again. They were passing through the Empire's core worlds now. The space around them was full of ships and stations, all of them powerful enough to destroy the Star Wanderer with a single shot. But none of them did. None of them even looked twice at the little human ship tumbling through their territory. Dead ships were common here, monuments to the Empire's victories. The Star Wanderer was just one more piece of debris in a galaxy full of human failures. Hours passed in tense silence. Anna monitored the Phoenix units, keeping them cool and dormant. Martinez updated their drift calculations, making sure they stayed on course while looking random. Walker watched everything, recording it all for a report that would probably never reach Earth. Contact, Martinez said suddenly. Big one. Coming in from the port side. They all turned to look. Through the bridge windows, they saw another Empire vessel approaching. But this one was different. Instead of the usual golden color, its hull was deep blue, almost black. As it passed close to them, they could see strange patterns shifting across its surface. Military, Walker said quietly. High command, by the look of it. Record everything. The dark ship moved past them slowly, escorted by a dozen smaller vessels. Its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making it hard to look at directly. This was Empire technology they hadn't seen before. Sir, Anna said, her voice shaking slightly. The Phoenix units, they're reacting to that ship. All of them. The containment systems are struggling. Walker moved to her station, watching the readouts. The living metal in their cargo holds was straining toward the dark ship, like iron filings toward a magnet. Whatever that vessel was, it had a strong connection to the Empire's biological technology. Reroute emergency power to containment, he ordered. We can't let Phoenix activate. Not here. Not yet. Anna worked frantically at her controls while Martinez prepared the emergency coolant systems. For 5 tense minutes, they fought to keep their cargo dormant as the dark ship passed by. If any of the Phoenix units activated now, the mission would be over. Finally, the strange vessel moved out of range. The Phoenix units settled back to their normal state, and the crew could breathe again. What was that? Martinez asked, wiping sweat from his forehead. Some kind of command ship, Walker said. The Phoenix units recognized it. Probably uses the same biological technology, but more advanced. He made a note in the log. If they survived to deliver this information, Earth would want to know about these black ships. Anna ran another system check. Containment is holding, but that took a lot of power. We're down to 40% now. We need that solar recharge soon. Walker nodded. Adjust course for the red giant, but make it look natural, like we're being pulled by gravity. They spent the next day drifting toward the massive red star. Its light filled the bridge with a crimson glow, making everything look like it was covered in blood. The solar collectors hidden beneath their hull's scared plates slowly absorbed energy, recharging their batteries. As they waited, Walker thought about the dark ship they had seen. The Empire wasn't just powerful. They were still developing new technologies, still advancing. Earth's scientists had barely understood the basic golden ships. This new variant was generations beyond that. But none of that would matter soon. In 5 days, they would reach the Empire's main fleet base. In 5 days, they would show them that humanity's technology might be primitive, but it could still be deadly. The Star Wanderer continued its careful drift through enemy space, playing dead, staying quiet. Inside its holds, the Phoenix units waited like coiled springs, ready to unleash destruction on the Empire that thought itself invincible. 5 more days. 5 days of pretending to be debris, of maintaining their deception, of staying invisible in plain sight. 5 days until they could strike back at the Empire that had killed so many of their people. The hunt was almost over. Soon, the hunted would become the hunter. The Empire's main fleet base filled the entire view through the Star Wanderer's bridge windows. It was enormous, a massive ring structure that circled a blue-white star. Thousands of ships moved in perfect formation around it, their golden hulls shining in the starlight. This was the heart of the Empire's military might, the staging ground for their final attack on Earth's remaining colonies. "We're in position," Martinez said quietly. His hands hovered over the weapons controls, ready to start the sequence they had practiced countless times. Walker stood at the center of the bridge, watching the fleet movements. Everything they had seen until now had been nothing compared to this. The Empire had gathered enough firepower here to destroy every human settlement in the galaxy 10 times over. "Status of Phoenix units?" he asked. Anna checked her readings. All 30 units ready. They can sense the Empire ships. They want to wake up. She paused, looking at a new reading. "Sir, I'm detecting that dark ship again. It's docked at the central hub." Walker nodded. Of course, the strange command ship would be here. This was where the Empire planned their extinction. He took a deep breath, thinking about all the colonies that had been destroyed, all the lives lost. Watson, New Sydney, Hope's Landing. Now they would have their revenge. "Begin activation sequence," he ordered. Martinez started typing commands into his console. In the cargo holds below, the 30 Phoenix units began to power up. Their containers, disguised as simple cargo boxes, started to transform. "Empire ships are still ignoring us," Anna reported. "They think we're just another piece of debris floating near their base." The first alarm came exactly 3 seconds later. A nearby Empire patrol ship suddenly changed course, its sensors detecting the power surge from the Phoenix units. But it was already too late. The cargo containers burst open, releasing their deadly cargo. Each Phoenix unit was about the size of a small shuttle, their surfaces rippling with the same living metal the Empire used in their ships. But these units glowed red instead of gold, their biological systems altered by Earth scientists to turn them into weapons. "Multiple contacts," Martinez called out. "Empire ships moving to intercept." "Let them come," Walker said coldly. "Activate Phase 2. The Phoenix units spread out like a swarm of angry insects. The nearest Empire ship fired at them, but the shots passed harmlessly through their altered shields. When the units reached the ship, they didn't attack it. They merged with it. "It's working," Anna whispered, watching her displays. "The virus is spreading through their biological network." The infected Empire ship's golden surface turned red. then started firing on its companions. The nearby vessels, confused by the sudden betrayal, fired back. But their shots couldn't penetrate their own shield technology, even in its altered state. More Phoenix units reached more ships. Each vessel they touched turned against its allies, spreading chaos through the perfectly ordered fleet. The Empire's mighty warships, pride of their civilization, began tearing each other apart. Multiple distress calls detected. Martins reported, his voice filled with grim satisfaction. They're panicking. Their own command networks are being used against them. Walker watched as the infection spread. The Phoenix units were doing exactly what they were designed to do, turning the Empire's greatest strength into a weakness. Their linked ships, their biological technology, their perfect communication system, all of it was becoming a weapon against them. The Dark Command ship launched from the central hub, its escorts moving to protect it. But 3 Phoenix units were already heading for it, drawn to its powerful biological signature. "Sir," Anna called out, "the command ship, it's different. Its defenses are stronger. The Phoenix units can't merge with it directly." Walker smiled. "They don't need to. Look." The infected Empire ships were turning their weapons on the command ship. Hundreds of golden vessels, now glowing red with the Phoenix virus, opened fire simultaneously. Not even the advanced black hull could withstand that much firepower. The command ship disappeared in a massive explosion. "Time check," Walker said. 4 hours until Phoenix breakdown," Anna reported. "We need to clear the area before then." But they couldn't leave yet. Walker had one more task to complete. "Open a channel," he ordered. "Full broadcast, all frequencies." Martinez looked up in surprise. "Sir, breaking radio silence. They know we're here now. Might as well give them our message." The communication system powered up for the first time since they entered Empire space. Walker stood straight, thinking of all the humans who had died thinking their species would be exterminated, that their deaths meant nothing. "To the Bright Empire," he said clearly, his words being translated into their language. "You considered humans a pest species, something to be exterminated. You never bothered to study us properly. Never bothered to learn what we're capable of. That was your mistake." Around them, the mighty Empire fleet was tearing itself apart. Ships crashed into each other, fired on their allies, rammed the central base. The perfect order had descended into chaos. "Humanity doesn't just survive," Walker continued. "We adapt. We learn. You gave us your technology when you destroyed our colonies. We studied it, changed it, turned it against you. This is how vermin bite back." The base's main reactor exploded, sending a shockwave through space. The Star Wanderer's hull creaked under the strain, but held together. They had built this ship to survive just long enough to deliver its message. "Remember this day," Walker said. "Remember that you brought this upon yourselves. Remember what happened when you underestimated humanity." He cut the transmission. Around them, the destruction continued. The Phoenix units had infected nearly 1,000 ships now. The Empire's entire invasion fleet was destroying itself, along with the base that had launched so many attacks on human colonies. 3 hours until Phoenix breakdown, Anna reported. "We need to go." Walker nodded. "Set course for deep space. Maximum power to engines." The Star Wanderer's engines came to life for the first time in weeks. They would never make it back to Earth. They had always known that. The ship had been modified too much, stripped down to carry its deadly cargo. It would barely hold together long enough to clear the blast zone. As they accelerated away from the dying base, Walker looked at his crew. Anna, who had kept their deception working for so long. Martinez, who had lost his sister but found his revenge. They had all known this was a one-way mission. They had all chosen to come anyway. Behind them, the Empire's greatest fleet base continued to tear itself apart. The Phoenix units would break down soon, taking their infected ships with them in a chain reaction that would destroy everything in the area. The Empire would survive. They were too big, too powerful to be destroyed by one attack. But they would remember. They would remember the day their mightiest fleet was destroyed by a single human cargo ship. They would remember that the pests they had tried to exterminate had stung them back. The Star Wanderer fled into deep space, carrying its triumphant crew on their final journey. They had changed the course of the war. They had shown the Empire that humanity would not go quietly into extinction. Behind them, their virus continued to spread through the Empire's fleet, turning their perfect machines against them, proving that sometimes the deadliest weapon was the one they never saw coming. News of the devastation spread through the Empire's worlds like a shockwave. Their mighty fleet base, the pride of their military, had been destroyed. 1,000 ships lost, their finest commanders dead, their invasion plans ruined, and all because of a single human vessel they had ignored. The Star Wanderer's message played on every channel, translated into hundreds of alien languages. Walker's words echoed through the Empire's perfect cities. This is how vermin bite back. The Empire's citizens, who had never thought twice about the extinction of a lesser species, began to look at the stars with fear. In the depths of space, far from the destruction they had caused, the Star Wanderer's crew made their final preparations. The ship's engines were failing, strained beyond their limits by their desperate escape. They had cleared the blast zone, but there would be no rescue, no return to Earth. They had always known this would be their final mission. Phoenix breakdown in 30 minutes, Anna reported from her engineering station. Her voice was tired but proud. The chain reaction has already started at the fleet base. Nothing will survive. Walker stood at his familiar spot on the bridge, watching the distant explosion on their long-range sensors. The Empire's mighty base was collapsing in on itself as the infected ships crashed into each other. Their biological technology turned into a weapon of self-destruction. "Send the final report," he ordered. A small probe, barely larger than a football, launched from the Star Wanderer's hull. It would carry the news of their success back to Earth, along with all the data they had gathered about Empire technology. "Do you think it will change anything?" Martins asked, watching the probe disappear into faster-than-light speed. "Will they stop hunting us now?" "They'll have to," Anna said. "We proved they're not invincible. We showed them that humans can hurt them. They'll think twice before attacking another colony." Walker nodded. The Empire had lost more than ships and soldiers today. They had lost their sense of invulnerability. Their perfect technology, their biological ships that they were so proud of, had been turned against them by the very species they considered vermin. "New contacts," Martins reported suddenly. "Empire ships, fast ones. They must have been outside the infection zone." Through the bridge windows, they could see the golden ships approaching. These weren't the mighty warships they had destroyed. They were smaller, faster patrol vessels. But even one of them could easily destroy the damaged Star Wanderer. "Distance to Phoenix breakdown?" Walker asked. 20 minutes, Anna replied. "The blast will reach us in 22 minutes. Those ships, they're too close. They'll be caught in it too." Walker smiled. Even now, the Empire's arrogance was working against them. They were so eager to catch the ship that had humiliated them. They didn't realize they were flying into a trap. "Open a channel," he ordered. Martinez looked up in surprise. "Sir, you want to talk to them. They deserve one last warning. It's more than they ever gave us." The communication system crackled to life. The Empire ships were broadcasting demands for their surrender, threats of punishment for their attack. Walker waited for them to finish, then spoke calmly. "This is Captain James Walker of the Star Wanderer. You're pursuing us into a death zone. The Phoenix breakdown will destroy everything in this sector in 19 minutes. Turn back, or you'll die with us." The Empire ships didn't slow down. Of course they didn't. They couldn't believe that prey would choose death, couldn't understand that humans would sacrifice themselves to complete their mission. "They're not listening," Martinez said. "They never did," Walker replied. "That's why we beat them." The Empire ships drew closer, their weapons charging. They expected the human vessel to surrender, to beg for mercy. They still didn't understand what they were dealing with. 15 minutes to breakdown, Anna reported. Sir, it's been an honor. Walker looked at his crew. They had followed him across enemy space, maintained their disguise for weeks, and struck a blow that the Empire would never forget. Now they would complete their mission with one final act of defiance. Launch the backup probe, he ordered. Let's make sure Earth gets our message. A second small probe shot away from the ship, heading in a different direction than the first. The Empire ships ignored it, too focused on their prey. Their golden hulls gleamed in the starlight as they moved to surround the Star Wanderer. 10 minutes, Anna said quietly. The Empire ships opened fire. Their energy weapons struck the Star Wanderer's hull, burning through the outer plating. But they were too late. Nothing they could do would stop what was coming. Play the message again, Walker ordered. All frequencies. His words echoed through space one final time. You considered humans a pest species, something to be exterminated. That was your mistake. The Empire ships moved closer, preparing to board the damaged human vessel. They wanted prisoners, wanted to know how their perfect technology had been corrupted. They never saw the real threat until it was too late. 5 minutes, Anna reported. Her engineering screens were filled with warnings as the ship's systems failed one by one. It was a good plan, Martine said, watching the Empire ships close in, using their arrogance against them, making them ignore us until it was too late. It was the only way, Walker replied. We could never beat them in a fair fight. But they never expected us to fight dirty. The first signs of the Phoenix breakdown began to appear. The infected ships back at the fleet base were exploding, their biological technology destroying itself in a chain reaction. The blast wave was spreading, moving faster than any ship could escape. 1 minute, Anna said. The Empire ships were finally realizing their danger, finally trying to retreat. But they had come too far. Their pride had led them into the trap. Send the final transmission, Walker ordered. Martinez typed the commands with steady hands. Across every frequency in every language the Empire used, their last message played. Remember the colonies you destroyed. Remember the lives you took. And remember the ship you ignored. The ship that brought your pride crashing down. The Phoenix breakdown reached them in a wave of blinding light. The Empire ships disappeared first, their biological technology making them more vulnerable to the chain reaction. The Star Wanderer held together a few seconds longer, its primitive hull resisting the breakdown. In those final moments, Walker thought about Earth, about the colonies that would now have a chance to survive. The Empire would recover eventually, but they would never again see humanity as mere pests to be exterminated. They would remember the Star Wanderer, the ship they had ignored until it was too late. The breakdown wave consumed them, erasing all trace of their ship and their sacrifice. But their message had been sent, their mission completed. The probes would reach Earth, carrying news of their victory and warnings about the Empire's technology. The war would continue, but everything had changed. The Empire had learned that even vermin could bite back, that their perfect technology could be turned against them, that their arrogance had cost them their greatest fleet. And somewhere in the Empire's perfect cities, their leaders looked at the reports of destruction with new eyes. They had thought themselves gods, had treated other species as insects to be crushed. Now they had learned that even insects could sting, and that their sting could be deadly. The Star Wanderer was gone, but its legacy would live on. The ship they had ignored had changed the galaxy forever. The old warship drifted through the dark space between the stars, its hull bearing the scars of a decade of service. Paint peeled from its sides, and some of the exterior lights flickered weakly against the void. In large letters along its hull, the name Defiant stood proud, though the elements had worn away at its once bright paint. Captain James Miller stood at the bridge's main viewport, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he watched the stars drift by. 20 years of space service had left gray streaks in his dark hair, but his eyes remained sharp as ever. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, the soft beeping of instruments providing a comfortable background rhythm to their patrol route. "Captain," called out Tom from the sensor station, his voice cutting through the quiet. "We have company. Imperial patrol vessel approaching from Sector 7. Miller nodded, unsurprised. The Empire's ships had developed a habit of shadowing the Defiant whenever they crossed paths. Standard approach. "Yes, sir. They're making no effort to hide their presence." "Of course they aren't," Miller muttered. He squared his shoulders and prepared for what would come next. The Empire's crews had become predictable in their arrogance. The massive Imperial vessel emerged from the darkness like a predator, its silver hull gleaming with the light of distant stars. The ship was everything the Defiant wasn't: sleek, modern, and pristine. Its design spoke of power and wealth, a testament to the Empire's technological superiority. The communications officer, Ann Wilson, touched her console. "They're hailing us, sir. Standard frequencies." "Put them through." Miller kept his voice level, professional. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the sneering face of an Imperial captain. His uniform sparkled with decorative metals, and his purple skin seemed to shimmer under the bright lights of his bridge. "Well, well," the Imperial captain's voice dripped with mock surprise. "If it isn't the human's famous rust bucket. Still holding together, I see. Rather impressive for such primitive engineering." Miller smiled politely. He'd heard variations of this speech dozens of times before. "Imperial vessel, this is Captain James Miller of the Earth ship Defiant. We're conducting a routine patrol of human space. Is there something we can help you with?" The Imperial captain's sneer grew wider. "Help? From that ancient heap of scrap metal? Tell me, Captain, does it ever bother you? Flying around in yesterday's technology, while the rest of the galaxy advances, your ship belongs in a museum, or perhaps a scrapyard." Behind Miller, the bridge crew continued their work, seemingly unaffected by the insults. They'd all heard worse. The Empire's disdain for human technology had become something of a running joke among the crew. "We manage well enough," Miller replied calmly. "Now, if there's nothing else—" "Oh, there is something else," the Imperial captain interrupted. "We've detected some irregularities in your power signature. Nothing serious, I'm sure. Just the sort of thing one would expect from such outdated equipment. Would you like us to send over some of our engineers? They might be able to prevent your core from failing catastrophically." Miller felt his jaw tighten, but kept his expression neutral. The irregularities were nothing of the sort. They were carefully crafted power fluctuations designed to make the Defiant appear less capable than it was. The fact that Imperial sensors could detect them at all was actually a point in humanity's favor, though they didn't know it. "Thank you for your concern," Miller said, "but our engineers have everything well in hand." The Imperial captain made a dismissive gesture. "Suit yourself. Though I must admit, I'm curious. How do you humans maintain your pride? Flying ships like this, while the rest of us cruise among the stars in vessels of true power. It must be humbling." Miller allowed himself a small smile. "Pride comes in many forms, Captain. We take ours in getting the job done, regardless of how we look doing it." "How charmingly primitive," the Imperial captain laughed. "Well, we won't keep you from your important patrol. Try not to let any of your systems fail catastrophically. It would be such a shame to have to rescue your crew." The transmission cut off before Miller could respond, though he hadn't planned to. The Imperial ship glided past them, its engines flaring with unnecessary brightness, a deliberate display of their supposed superiority. "Well," Anne said from her station, "they're getting more creative with their insults. That's something." A quiet chuckle rippled through the bridge. Miller turned to face his crew, a genuine smile crossing his face. "Tom, make sure you got good sensor readings of their ship while they were showing off. Command will want to add it to the database." "Already done, sir," Tom replied. "Their new sensor suite is obvious if you know what to look for. They're not nearly as subtle as they think they are." Miller nodded and returned to his captain's chair. The Empire's mockery was useful. It made them careless, prone to showing off their latest technology, in an attempt to emphasize their superiority. Each encounter added to Earth's understanding of Imperial capabilities. The truth about the Defiant was buried under layers of secrecy. Behind its worn exterior and seemingly outdated systems lay some of humanity's most advanced technology. The flickering lights and power fluctuations were carefully manufactured. The scarred hull contained sensors more advanced than anything the Empire had developed. Even the bridge, with its simple displays and basic controls, was a masterwork of deception. The Empire saw what they wanted to see: an obsolete warship crewed by a species they considered barely worthy of notice. They never questioned why Earth would keep such an old vessel on active patrol. Their contempt blinded them to the possibility that the humans might be more clever than they appeared. "Course laid in for the outer colonies, sir," the navigator reported. "Shall I proceed?" Miller settled into his chair, feeling the familiar comfort of its worn cushions. "Proceed. Steady it as she goes. Let's give our Imperial friends something to mock in their reports." The Defiant's engines hummed to life, a sound that Imperial sensors would read as inefficient and outdated, while in reality, the ship's power plant was operating at peak efficiency. As they accelerated away from the encounter, Miller thought about all the similar meetings they'd had over the past year. The Empire's confidence grew with each passing month, their belief in their own superiority becoming more entrenched with each encounter. Someday, that confidence would be their undoing. But for now, the Defiant would continue its patrol, gathering intelligence with every mocking encounter, playing the role of an obsolete warship while hiding its true nature. Miller and his crew would endure the Empire's ridicule because they understood something the Empire had forgotten. True strength lies not in appearance, but in capability, and the deadliest predator is often the one that appears least threatening. As the stars streaked by outside, Miller reviewed the ship's actual status on his secure terminal. All systems were operating perfectly, their true power hidden beneath layers of false readings and manufactured inefficiencies. The Empire might mock the Defiant, but Miller knew that when the time came, and it would come, they would learn too late the cost of their arrogance. For now, though, they would continue their patrol, a supposedly obsolete warship in a galaxy of gleaming Imperial vessels. And with each passing day, with each sneering encounter, they would add another piece to the puzzle that would eventually bring the Empire to its knees. The emergency signal cut through the quiet of deep space like a knife. Captain Miller had been reviewing maintenance reports when the alert flashed across his screen, its urgent red pulse demanding immediate attention. "Sir," Anne called from her communication station, "we're picking up a distress call from Research Station Delta. They're under attack." Miller straightened in his chair. Research Station Delta was one of Earth's most remote facilities, technically within human space, but close to Imperial borders. "Put it through." The station director's voice crackled through the bridge speakers, filled with static and fear. "To any Earth vessels, this is Research Station Delta. We are under attack by an Imperial warship. They've disabled our communications array and—" "No, please, we're a civilian facility." The transmission cut off abruptly. "How far?" Miller asked, already knowing the Defiant was the closest ship. Tom checked his sensors. 20 minutes at maximum speed, sir. The Imperial ship is still there. Reading weapons fire." Miller's jaw clenched. This was a clear violation of every treaty between Earth and the Empire. "Sound battle stations. Get me ship-wide." The alert klaxon echoed through the ship as Miller stood. "All hands, this is the captain. We have a civilian station under attack. I won't lie. We're heading into a fight against an Imperial warship. They think we're outdated and weak. Today, we proved them wrong." Battle stations. The Defiant's engines roared to life, their true power finally unleashed. The ship shot through space like an arrow, while the crew prepared for combat. Gone was the pretense of inefficiency. Now every system hummed with deadly precision. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the station, and the scene confirmed their worst fears. The Imperial warship, nearly twice the size of the Defiant, was systematically destroying the station's outer sections. Debris floated in space, and emergency force fields flickered around multiple hull breaches. Imperial vessel, this is Captain Miller of the Earth ship Defiant. Cease your attack immediately. You are in violation of. The Imperial ship's response came in the form of a plasma torpedo that streaked past the Defiant's bow. A warning shot. Well, Miller said quietly, I guess we're done talking. Tactical analysis of their weapons. Standard Imperial loadout, sir, the tactical officer reported. Their shields are configured for heavy combat. They're not expecting much resistance from, how did they put it last time? A rust bucket. Miller allowed himself a grim smile. Let's change their expectations. Execute combat pattern Delta 7. Weapons free. The Defiant moved with a grace that would have shocked any Imperial observer. Its supposed structural weaknesses vanished as the ship pulled a tight turn that should have been impossible for a vessel its size. The Imperial ship fired again, expecting an easy target. Instead, the Defiant's true defensive systems activated. The incoming fire met a shield matrix far more advanced than anything the Empire had encountered. The energy dispersed harmlessly across a barrier that, according to every Imperial scan, shouldn't even exist. Target their weapons array, Miller ordered. Minimal force. Let's show them exactly what they've walked into. The Defiant's main gun spoke, not with the crude plasma weapons the Empire expected, but with focused quantum phase beams that slipped through Imperial shields as if they weren't there. The precision shots struck exactly where intended, destroying the Imperial ship's primary weapon ports without compromising their hull. On the bridge, Miller watched the Imperial vessel's reaction. They tried to bring secondary weapons online, tried to adjust their shields, tried to call for reinforcements. The Defiant's electronic warfare suite, hidden behind false power signatures all these years, shut down their communications before they could send a distress call. Sir, and reported, they're hailing us. The same Imperial captain who had mocked outdated Earth ships now appeared on the screen, his purple face pale with shock. This is impossible. Your weapons can't. Can't what? Miller's voice was cold. Can't penetrate your superior shields. Can't target with this level of precision. I wonder what else this rust bucket can't do. We were within our rights, the Imperial captain protested. This station was conducting weapons research. This is a civilian research station studying deep space phenomena. Miller cut him off. And even if it wasn't, you violated 3 separate treaties by attacking it. Power down your remaining weapons and prepare to be boarded. We'll be taking custody of your ship and crew. You can't. I already have. Miller nodded to tactical. Another precise shot disabled the Imperial ship's engines. Your choice now is whether your crew survives this encounter. Decide quickly. The Imperial captain's face showed a mix of fury and fear as he realized his situation. The mighty Imperial warship, reduced to helplessness by what they dismissed as an obsolete relic. We surrender. The next hours were busy as the Defiant's crew secured the Imperial vessel and evacuated wounded civilians from the station. Miller coordinated with Earth Command, knowing this incident would change everything. The Empire wouldn't be able to dismiss this defeat as easily as they had the Defiant's appearance. In his quarters that evening, Miller recorded his log. The Empire's attack on Research Station Delta marks a turning point. Their arrogance led them to believe they could attack a civilian target with impunity. Instead, they'd given us the excuse we needed to demonstrate a fraction of our true capabilities. Earth Command believes the Empire will respond with increased aggression. Wounded pride makes for dangerous enemies, but they've lost the advantage of our perceived weakness. The next time they face an Earth ship, they won't know what's hidden behind its worn exterior. He paused, considering the implications. The Defiant's success today was built on years of careful deception. While the Empire mocked us, we studied them. While they showed off their technology, We perfected countermeasures. They never wondered why Earth, with all its resources, would keep an outdated ship on patrol. Their contempt blinded them to the obvious question: what if it wasn't actually outdated? The captured Imperial ship would be studied, its crew questioned. But Miller knew the real damage wasn't to the Empire's military strength. It was to their certainty of superiority. They would review every encounter with seemingly primitive Earth ships, wondering what other surprises waited behind those weathered hulls. As the Defiant maintained position near the damaged station, waiting for relief ships to arrive, Miller watched the Imperial warship floating powerless nearby. Its once gleaming hull was now scarred by precise weapon impacts, each mark a testament to how completely they'd underestimated their opponent. The Empire had mocked this warship, had dismissed it as obsolete and weak. Today they'd learned the cost of that mistake. But Miller knew this was just the beginning. The Empire wouldn't take this humiliation lightly. They would respond with force, trying to prove their superiority once and for all. Let them come, Miller thought. The Defiant had shown what one supposedly outdated ship could do. The Empire was about to discover that every Earth vessel they'd mocked might hide similar surprises. Their arrogance had started this fight. Human ingenuity would finish it. 3 weeks after the research station Delta incident, the Empire's response began. It started small Imperial ships harassing human cargo vessels, random inspections of colony ships, and increasingly aggressive patrols along the border. But Miller knew these were just the opening moves in a larger game. The Defiant orbited Earth's largest outer colony, New Hope, its worn exterior masking heightened battle readiness. Miller stood in the ship's briefing room with his senior staff, studying tactical displays showing Imperial fleet movements. "They're not even trying to hide it anymore," Tom said, pointing to red dots representing Imperial warships. 3 battle groups have moved within striking distance of our outer colonies in the past week alone. Anne nodded grimly. And their propaganda broadcasts are getting nastier. They're calling the Delta incident a human provocation, claiming we attacked their ship without cause. Of course they are. Miller traced a finger along the display's border markers. They can't admit one of our obsolete ships defeated their latest warship. It would raise too many questions about their supposed superiority. The room's communications panel chimed. "Captain, priority message from Earth Command." The screen lit up with Admiral Rogers' face, his expression grave. "Captain Miller, I assume you're tracking the Imperial fleet movements." "Yes, sir. They're positioning for something big. Our intelligence agrees. We've intercepted communications suggesting they're planning a full-scale invasion of the outer colonies. They mean to teach humanity a lesson about our proper place in the galaxy." Miller's staff exchanged worried looks. The Admiral continued. "The Empire's defeat at Delta wounded their pride. Now they want to prove their dominance once and for all. They believe overwhelming force will break us. How many ships are we looking at, sir?" Current estimates suggest 5 Imperial battle groups, possibly more. They're gathering their forces slowly, trying not to be obvious. But our deep space sensors show massive fleet movements behind their borders. Miller studied the tactical display. "They'll hit New Hope first. It's our largest outer colony, and taking it would split our defense forces." "Agreed. That's why the Defiant will remain on station there. We're deploying additional ships to support you, but they'll be older models like yours." The Admiral's mouth twitched in a slight smile. "After all, we wouldn't want to worry the Empire with any signs of advanced technology." The briefing continued, outlining Earth's defense strategy. Throughout human space, ships that appeared outdated and weak were moving into position, each hiding capabilities that would shock the Imperial fleet. Later, walking through the Defiant's corridors, Miller felt the tension among his crew. They'd proven they could handle one Imperial warship, but facing entire battle groups was different. He stopped at various stations, speaking with crew members, ensuring they understood what was coming. In engineering, he found the chief engineer, Robert, supervising modifications to the ship's power systems. "How are we looking?" Ready as we'll ever be, Captain. Robert patted a nearby console affectionately. They think they know what this ship can do after Delta, but we've still got plenty of surprises for them. We'll need them, Miller replied. Any word from the Colonial Defense Forces? They're nervous, but holding together. The civilian government's doing a good job keeping people calm, but everyone knows something's coming. New Hope's lights were visible through the nearest viewport, the colony's habitation domes glittering against the planet's surface. Millions of people lived there, pioneers who'd built new lives far from Earth. The Empire thought these colonies were weak points, easy targets to break humanity's spirit. Days passed, filled with preparation and waiting. Imperial ships probed the defense perimeter with increasing boldness, testing responses, looking for weaknesses. The Defiant and its small squadron of seemingly obsolete vessels maintained their positions, appearing vulnerable while concealing their true strength. The first real warning came from a deep space sensor buoy. A massive Imperial fleet had begun moving openly toward New Hope, their ships no longer trying to hide their presence. The Empire wanted humanity to see them coming, to understand the futility of resistance. Miller received the report in his quarters. He thought about all the times Imperial ships had mocked the Defiant, all their sneering comments about human technology. Their contempt had led them to this moment, convinced that their superior numbers and apparent technological advantage guaranteed victory. On the bridge, he watched the tactical display fill with red markers as the Imperial fleet approached. His crew worked calmly at their stations, the months of deception having prepared them for this moment. The Defiant's worn exterior now served a new purpose, making the Empire overconfident in their attack. "Message from the Imperial flagship, sir," Anne reported. "They're demanding our immediate surrender. They say if we withdraw all forces from the outer colonies now, they'll allow Earth to maintain nominal independence under Imperial oversight." Miller smiled grimly. "Send them our response. Come and take it." The Imperial fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in waves, hundreds of ships filling the space around New Hope. Their formations were perfect, their strategy exactly what their training dictated for overwhelming an inferior force. They expected the human ships to break and run, or to be destroyed in a futile defense. Instead, they found the Defiant and its squadron waiting in precise positions, their apparent weaknesses masking carefully planned killing zones. As the Empire prepared to demonstrate their superiority once and for all, they remained blind to the truth that had been in front of them all along. They had mocked these ships, dismissed them as relics, and convinced themselves that humanity was technologically primitive. That belief had shaped their strategy, their deployment, their entire approach to the coming battle. Now that same belief would lead them into a trap years in the making. Miller watched the Imperial fleet take up attack positions, their confidence evident in their aggressive formation. They thought they knew what Earth ships were capable of. They thought the Defiant's victory at Delta had been a fluke, a lucky shot that couldn't be repeated against a proper fleet. "All ships, battle stations," Miller ordered, his voice calm. "Remember your training. Remember Delta. But most of all, remember why we let them think we were weak. Today, the Empire learns the cost of their arrogance." The massive Imperial fleet moved forward, weapons charged, ready to demonstrate their power against what they saw as inferior vessels. They never questioned why Earth would position outdated ships to defend its most valuable colony. They never wondered what other secrets those worn hulls might hide. Their first salvos would launch any moment, beginning a battle that would change the galaxy. But the Empire's fate had been sealed long before this day, written in every mocking comment and sneering dismissal of human capabilities. They had chosen to see what they expected to see, and that choice would prove fatal. The Defiant systems hummed with hidden power, ready for what was coming. The Empire had mocked this warship, and now that same warship would begin their downfall. All because they never learned the oldest lesson in warfare: never underestimate your enemy. The first Imperial shots lit up space like artificial stars. Hundreds of plasma torpedoes streaked toward the small human fleet, their paths forming a web of destruction that no primitive ships could hope to survive. On the Defiance bridge, Miller watched the incoming fire with calm eyes. "All ships, execute defense pattern Echo," he ordered. "Show them what these old rust buckets can really do." The supposedly obsolete human vessels moved with impossible precision. Their formation shifted like a living thing, creating gaps where there should be ships, presenting targets that vanished before Imperial weapons could track them. The massive barrage, enough firepower to level a small moon, hit nothing but empty space. On the Imperial flagship, Grand Admiral Reed watched in growing confusion as his opening strike failed. "Impossible. Their ships can't move like that. Our targeting computers show them as slow, outdated vessels." "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're having trouble getting sensor locks. Something's interfering with our systems." "Of course you're having trouble," Reed snapped. "They're using primitive jamming techniques. Adjust frequencies and fire again. They can't dodge forever." But the human ships weren't just dodging. The Defiant led its squadron in a complex dance, each movement bringing them closer to the Imperial fleet while appearing to retreat. Decades of enduring Imperial mockery had taught them exactly what the Empire expected to see, and now those expectations worked against them. Miller touched a control on his chair. "Time to show them the first surprise. All ships, activate quantum shield matrices." The next Imperial barrage struck the human ships directly and splashed harmlessly across barriers that, according to every Imperial scanner, couldn't possibly exist. The energy dissipated in complex patterns, feeding back into the shields instead of damaging them. "Sir," Tom called from his station, "Imperial fleet is adjusting formation. They're moving to surround us." "Let them," Miller replied. "They still think they know our capabilities. Weapons, prepare main guns, target their command and control nodes, just like we practiced." The Defiant's outdated weapons ports opened, revealing technology that had been carefully hidden for years. The Empire had mocked their apparent lack of advancement. They'd never considered that humanity's true weapons might be completely different from what they displayed. The first shot from the Defiant struck the nearest Imperial cruiser with surgical precision. The beam wasn't the crude plasma weapon they expected, but a focused quantum lance that bypassed shields and armor as if they weren't there. The cruiser's command center went dark, its crew suddenly unable to control their ship. "What was that?" Reed demanded, watching one of his best ships drift helplessly. "Their weapons, scan that energy signature." "Sir, we can't. Our sensors aren't detecting any weapon discharge. According to our readings, they haven't even fired." More shots followed, each human ship revealing weapons that Imperial sensors couldn't even detect. Ship after ship in the Imperial fleet lost control, their crews trapped aboard vessels they could no longer command. The Empire's perfect formation began to break apart. "All ships, open fire," Reed ordered, his voice edged with panic. "Destroy them. Use everything we have." The space around New Hope erupted with energy as the Imperial fleet launched its full arsenal, but their strategy was based on overwhelming primitive defenses that didn't actually exist. The human ships sliced through their barrage with precision that should have been impossible, their true capabilities finally unleashed. "Squadron leaders, execute attack pattern Omega," Miller commanded. "Show them what humanity has been working on while they were busy mocking us." The human fleet split into smaller groups, each targeting specific sections of the Imperial formation. Ships that the Empire had dismissed as relics demonstrated maneuvers that violated their understanding of physics. The Defiant led the charge, its worn hull absorbing direct hits that should have vaporized it. On his flagship, Reed watched his carefully planned assault crumble. "This isn't possible. They're supposed to be behind us technologically. Every report, every analysis. Sir, we're losing ships faster than we can count. Their weapons, They're not just more advanced, they're operating on principles we don't understand. The Empire's mighty fleet, which had approached with such confidence, was being systematically torn apart, not through brute force, but with precise strikes that disabled rather than destroyed. Each hit demonstrated not just superior technology, but a perfect understanding of Imperial systems and tactics. They knew, Reed whispered, finally understanding. All those years, those outdated ships, the primitive readings, they wanted us to underestimate them. They studied us while we were laughing at them. The Defiant's next strike took out his flagship's main power, leaving only emergency systems running. Through the viewport, Reed watched his fleet falling to pieces, defeated by the very ships he had mocked countless times. Miller's voice came through on all frequencies, calm and clear. Imperial fleet, you have a choice. Power down your remaining weapons and prepare to be boarded, or continue this fight and lose everything. We've disabled your ships rather than destroying them, but that courtesy only extends so far. Reed stared at the tactical display, watching more of his ships go dark. The mighty Imperial fleet, pride of the Empire, had been defeated by a force they had completely underestimated. Their own arrogance had blinded them to the truth, while they were boasting of their superiority. Humanity had quietly surpassed them. "This is Grand Admiral Reed," he transmitted, his voice heavy with defeat. "All Imperial ships, stand down. I repeat, stand down." The battle ended not with a grand explosion, but with the quiet powering down of weapon systems throughout the Imperial fleet. The human ships moved among their defeated enemies like sheepdogs herding their flock, their worn exteriors now a mockery of Imperial pride. On the Defiant's bridge, Miller looked at the sensor display showing hundreds of disabled Imperial ships. "Send word to Earth Command. The Empire's main fleet is neutralized. New Hope is secure." "Sir," Anne reported, "we're getting signals from other sectors. The Empire's forces are retreating across all fronts. Word of what happened here is spreading." Miller nodded. The Empire had built its power on a foundation of perceived technological superiority. Today that foundation had cracked. Every world under Imperial control would soon know that their mighty fleet had been defeated by ships they considered obsolete. "Send recovery teams to the disabled ships," he ordered, "and prepare a full report for command. The Empire's going to have a lot of questions to answer about attacking our colonies." The battle for New Hope was over, but Miller knew this was just the beginning. The Empire's defeat here would echo across the galaxy, showing everyone that their claimed superiority had been an illusion. All because they had mocked the wrong warship, never questioning why Earth would keep such primitive vessels on patrol. As the Defiant moved among the silent Imperial ships, its worn hull gleaming in the light of New Hope's sun, Miller allowed himself a small smile. The Empire had spent years laughing at human technology, never realizing they were helping humanity prepare for this very day. Their arrogance had been their undoing, and now the galaxy would never be the same. News of the Empire's defeat spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. The story seemed impossible. A small fleet of outdated human vessels had destroyed the Empire's main battle fleet, but the evidence was undeniable. Hundreds of Imperial warships floated powerless above New Hope, their crews rescued by the very ships they had mocked for so long. 3 months after the battle, Miller stood on the Defiant's bridge, watching a very different scene unfold. The ship now orbited the Imperial capital world, but not as a visitor seeking permission to dock. The worn warship that had endured years of mockery now led a fleet of Earth vessels, their true power no longer hidden. "Another system has declared independence," Anne reported from her station. "That makes 17 former Imperial worlds in the past week alone." The Empire was crumbling. Their defeated New Hope had shattered more than their military power. It had destroyed the illusion of superiority that held their realm together. Every subject species and conquered world now knew the truth. The mighty Empire could be beaten. "Message from the Imperial Palace," Tom called out. "They're ready to begin the surrender talks." Miller straightened his uniform. Signal the other fleet commanders. It's time to end this. The Imperial Palace's grand meeting hall had been designed to humble visitors, its massive architecture meant to emphasize the Empire's power and wealth. But today it felt empty, its grandeur hollow. Miller led the Earth delegation into the hall, joined by commanders from other human ships that had fought at New Hope. Grand Admiral Reed sat at the Imperial side of the table, his once pristine uniform now lacking its medals. Beside him, various Imperial officials shifted nervously in their seats. They had spent years treating human representatives with barely disguised contempt. Now they couldn't meet the Earth commander's eyes. The terms are simple, Miller began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. The Empire will withdraw from all occupied territories. Each world will be free to choose its own path. Independence, alliance with Earth, or continued association with what remains of the Empire. You're destroying something that took centuries to build, one Imperial official protested. The Empire brought order to the galaxy. The Empire brought tyranny, Miller corrected. You built your power on a foundation of supposed superiority. When that foundation crumbled, everything else followed. Reed spoke up, his voice bitter. How long? How long were you playing us for fools with those obsolete ships? From the beginning. Miller allowed himself a small smile. Every time you mocked our technology, every time you showed off your latest advancements to impress us with your superiority, we were learning. The Defiant and ships like her were never outdated. They were purpose-built to appear primitive while hiding our true capabilities. The Imperial officials exchanged shocked looks. Their entire strategy had been based on the assumption of technological superiority. They had never considered that humanity might have deliberately appeared weak. But the research stations, another official said, the colonial infrastructure, everything we saw suggested exactly what we wanted you to see, Miller finished. While you were laughing at our primitive ships, we were building something far beyond your understanding. Your contempt made you blind. The surrender proceedings continued through the day. With each passing hour, reports arrived of more systems declaring independence from the Empire. The realm that had dominated the galaxy through fear and proclaimed superiority was dissolving. Later, walking through the Imperial capital's streets, Miller saw the changes already beginning. Species that had been relegated to servant roles now walked openly, their heads held high. The Empire's fall had unleashed a wave of freedom that would reshape the galaxy. Back on the Defiant, Miller recorded what would be one of his final log entries of the war. The Empire that mocked us has fallen, not through brute force or superior numbers, but through their own arrogance. They believed their technology made them unbeatable, and that belief made them vulnerable. While they were laughing at our ships, they never asked the important questions. Why would Earth keep using outdated vessels? Why would a spacefaring civilization choose to appear weak? Their contempt gave us the perfect cover to prepare for this day. The ship's worn hull had become famous across the galaxy. The vessel that Imperial crews had called a rust bucket was now recognized as the key to their defeat. But Miller knew the Defiant's disguise was no longer needed. Begin the refit, he ordered. It's time to show everyone what this ship really is. Over the next weeks, the Defiant's false exterior was stripped away. The flickering lights and power fluctuations that had fooled Imperial sensors were removed. The seemingly basic weapons ports were upgraded with visible quantum lance arrays. When the work was done, the ship gleamed like new, its true nature finally revealed to the galaxy. But Miller kept one small section of the hull unchanged, a patch of worn metal and peeling paint, preserved as a reminder. The Empire had fallen because they saw what they expected to see. They had mocked this warship, never wondering why their targets accepted the mockery with such patience. The final Imperial surrender was signed a month later. The Empire that had dominated the galaxy for centuries had been brought down by the very ships they ridiculed. Their territory was divided among newly independent worlds, their mighty fleets reduced to a defense force for their home systems. On the day the surrender took effect, Miller stood in the Defiant's observation lounge with his crew, watching the Imperial capital below. The ship's new hull sparkled in the sunlight, but that preserved patch of wear remained visible, a testament to their long deception. "Hard to believe it's really over," Tom said, breaking the thoughtful silence. "All those years of playing weak, enduring their insults. Worth every moment," Miller replied. "They gave us exactly what we needed. Time to prepare, and their complete underestimation of our capabilities. The Empire's fall would be studied for generations, a cautionary tale about the dangers of arrogance and the fatal mistake of mocking one's enemies. They had laughed at humanity's ships, dismissed their technology, and treated them with contempt. That contempt had blinded them to the truth until it was too late. The Defiant began its journey home, leading a fleet of ships that no longer needed to hide their true nature. Behind them, the former Imperial worlds began building their own futures, free from the tyranny that had gripped them for so long." Miller took one last look at the Imperial capital, now just another city on another world. The Empire had mocked this warship, treating it as a relic of the past. Instead, it had become the harbinger of their future, a future they never saw coming, because they were too busy laughing at what they thought they saw.